My whole life they didn't want me.
Taste the motherfucking freedom.
You know what I'm saying? What you gonna do? Where you
Kind
gonna
of
go?
crazy sometimes, you know what I'm saying?
How
You
you
just
gonna
got
make
shit
your
out
money?
here push, you know what I'm saying? Me, the way I work is I keep operating because I never fail, you know what I'm saying? I fall, I pick myself back up, I keep going, you know what I'm saying? Time to march, fuck what happens, you know?
King's
You
Logic,
can't take me
Mel
down.
D.
There's no force in
There
this
you go.
world that can fucking cancel my energy. Fuck it, you know? Let's go, man.
I'm back. Already twisted, no need to introduce. Get lifted one line. Political rap, milk, killing cancer like pills. Pop the general, it's arsenic. Retarded to the flame. Go against the grain, feel the same numb pain. Fuck shots, grab the bottle. Getting hollow, run for cover like the day after tomorrow. You can say it's chill, life's cold, but keep it real. Undercover, lost the battle, but still won the war. Dark side of the force, mind trick, transform. Jedi John Connor, doing what you wanna. Puffin' nails, hydroponics, getting lost in the madness. Sustained at the level that you practice. On my own planet while I bring it back to Earth. Crashing like a comet and I'm coming feet first. Fuck that, already spent and it ain't no apple pie. Try to tell the truth when you living in a lie.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Tills from the Chris. I'm your host, Chris White, mucosal melanoma survivor, thriver, and advocate. On today's podcast, I have with me a fellow melahomie who I met in Washington, D.C. during advocacy days this year. Please welcome Kristin McJunkins.
Yeah, so I was going through the insemination process, and so because I was 38 years old when I got diagnosed, which is part of the reason why I was doing insemination at that point, because I was older, and so yeah, in April I got the week I was supposed to be inseminated the fifth time, I got the diagnosis of cancer. And I mean, as with everything, just upends your life. And you really, I wasn't sure. And I really struggled, for a month or so, being upset about the fact that I was going to have to put all of that on hold, but dove right into the treatment process. And, so it was 2008. So there weren't a lot of treatment options. And for me, I had the sentinel node biopsy. And so I went in for surgery and had the melanoma removed, and they took out one lymph node in my groin area. And then I found out that that lymph node did have melanoma. So I had to go back in and have more lymph nodes taken out. And luckily those were clear. And so because I had clear margins and the lymph nodes were clear, there was really no other treatment available. I mean, interferon back then was the only thing, because clinical trials were for the later stages or active melanomas.
There was no immunotherapy, no immunotherapy, right? I mean,
right. And so, yeah, so, interferon just really makes you feel like
that was the thing.
Flu for a year. And, in my head, what kept me going was, okay, I'll still be able to have kids. And so I spent the year, going through the treatment. And of course I had done the research. I mean, and for me to have kids at a later age is always challenging to begin with. And then when I finished my treatment and my scans were clear, and, and I was seeing a psychiatrist, during that, just interferon, as well as just having cancer, can certainly lead to depression issues. And, so I spent a whole year, talking with them. And then when I finished treatment, I mean, I just felt amazing, because you just don't realize how bad you feel when you're going through treatment until you're not going through treatment. And so for 6 months,
Agree on that.
Yeah, for 6 months I was just flying high. I felt really good. And, and throughout that point, and I was talking with the dermatologist, as well as, my OBs and the fertility specialist, and, and nobody was telling me I couldn't have kids. But again, because there were still really no treatments, they kept saying, melanoma has a high risk of return. Being pregnant is an immunosuppressant state. And, so when people get melanoma when they're pregnant, it can grow really quickly. So, and I still had sperm frozen, like, that I was using and stuff. And
Right.
I spent a year, and I went to like a few different doctors, really just to get second opinions. And, some were saying wait 2 years, others were saying wait 3. But underlying all of that, I could tell they were extremely concerned. And So, like you had mentioned, probably about 6 months after I finished treatment, I just fell off the deep end in terms of, depression and being sad and, and again, like frustrated and worried that cancer was going to come back, but still feeling like I had to make the decision of not to have children. And a lot of it was, I was fine to be a single parent when I was healthy. But because a lot of my friends kept saying, well, you can adopt or you can do this. And all of that is true. And for me, I think I was just more worried that I was already single. If I was going to bring somebody into my life who didn't have a support system, and then I had this really high risk of having the cancer come back. And if something had happened to me, I would just feel even worse, leaving a child. and so it was a couple of years, but I finally, made the decision to get rid of anything I had frozen and to not do it.
Just walk away from it. Just kind of put it to bed. Just kind of be at peace with it.
It's something I've struggled with, but I have friends that have kids. I've helped, babysit them. I've taught friends' kids how to drive, and I've got, I've been a good aunt in a lot of ways, and and it's I'd say for a few years I really struggled with it, but at the same time, at this point in my life, I look back and I know it was the best decision. I mean, and by the time a lot of treatments started to come out, at that point I was close to being in my mid-40s, and then I really thought, I don't want to have a child at this age. Like late 30s was one thing, but mid-40s, I thought I'm too tired to do that. So, I've still considered, not necessarily, probably not adopting, but maybe fostering kids at some point. And and then after a few years after I went through my cancer, and my mom was diagnosed with lymphoma, and she passed away in 2017. But so I was at least glad I was healthy to be there for her and to help her through her challenges.
It's tough. It's super tough. I could totally relate. I mean, in a sense, having to kind of just come with the grips that like I myself am not going to naturally be able to be a dad. I mean, so when I was 36 when I got diagnosed, and I do like 2 surgeries, which get my primary and secondary tumors, which were both good with clear margins, and then I do right after that it was like, we got to radiate your primary area, and that's when they were like, hey, if you haven't had kids, you need to think about doing sperm banking. And so I was able to go up there one time and do the thing one time and stuff. And so, I was single and everything, and I hadn't had any, kids up to that point and stuff. And so, I mean, but that was definitely always kind of on my list, but it was literally like, I didn't have time to think about it or anything. It was like, okay, I wanted to live. So I was like, well, here's this option, but it's not like I was, looking into the dating world and stuff and meeting anybody. As I was trying to go through cancer treatment. And so, and it was just all crazy with timing of the world and stuff, because, when I came out of it's been like 3.5 years now since I came out of treatment, and, because January 2020, it was like COVID. So, it's like woke up from one nightmare, and then, it was like I was living in another, and it just didn't stop, I was like, what's going on?
I know, yeah.
So it's like, process, it wasn't until I got a, confirmed scans with, complete metabolic, response, that I was like, okay, like the cancer is like, definitely gone. The TILs did what it's supposed to do. Like I'm not worried about it, like, at the moment, and everything, but over the next year, I still kind of probably, would think anytime, like a little bit, hey, is could it come back? Could it, come back? But probably I would definitely say, it probably over the last, maybe like year or so, probably like, yeah, the last year or so, I'm pretty confident. I'm like, I'm not worried about it coming back, you know what I'm saying? It did its job, but I'm trying to figure out like how to move forward and then everything. And it's like, I've been so used to just being alone because I was alone, before the cancer. I was just doing the work thing, and I was all of that, and so it's like to go back to what I used to do. It was like, do I want to do that? Do I just want to be so busy to where I don't have time to remember? I thought I was trying to, start a family and do this and that and and so it's like, if I'm just trying to continue that grind, and I tried to do that and it was just so exhausting.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't know how it was going to hit, and
and I often said that when I was sick, if cancer did anything, it really reduced the BS in my life because I just had such a low tolerance for it because you're facing just trying to stay alive. And, and so, yeah, even getting acclimated back in the world, I think it does help to, make you realize like what you want, and it's okay to say no, and I'm not going to jump back into that insanity.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I didn't know immediately that was going to be the case, obviously, because it was like, I was always, during the cancer, I was always, keeping up with the whole image of like, it's cool, I got this, I'm positive. No, like it never defeated me. I'm going back to work, and it was, I was trying to hype myself up for that, you know what I mean? And I was, I wanted to be, and the longer I did that, it just became such a grind and a beatdown. And then, I couldn't, I wasn't really into talking and telling people about it because I was just so used to being alone. It's not like, because I had built a house when I was sick because I, was able to do all that. But so I come back to that, and it's like, there's no checks and balances because it's not like you have to, intentionally get a hold of people and do, this and, you know what I mean? Like there's no, and so, and plus because of COVID and stuff, it was just, I could go to work, but I couldn't, do anything else. And it just became so exhausting that I didn't really want to go do anything else. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
and it's like breaking the habit. I'm like, okay. And then I didn't start doing, getting into any advocacy things or really trying to recognize what was going on till like mid 2021. Mid 2021. And then I started writing, it down and looking at my old scans and stuff, starting to, you know what I mean? And just kind of backtracking and taking a breath and everything. And then literally from a year from that point, I'd switched jobs and I was making more money and this and that. And I was trying to keep up in that world, but I always knew I wanted to not do that forever and get more into just doing stuff that had to deal with talking about, how, my story and like, the cancer journeys and the other, just anything related to that. But everybody around me, I just kind of feel like they didn't have that same story. So it's hard for them to tell me, or give me advice because it's like, well, I don't know anybody, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, trust me, like it's just, everything feels so like good. I just, that's where I get my adrenaline or my good feels or my feel good is by, telling my story and then getting a reaction and just being, around that kind of space. And it's like, I know there's a need and a want for it. I just need to figure out how to get in that dynamic of that circle. And it's like, well, if the people that I'm around don't know where that's at and how to do it, they can't really, give me advice or guide me on that and stuff. Yeah. And so it's like, but to them, it's always just, like, well, what they do know is like, you gotta have the finances and stuff, and so that's where they come to help and stuff. And it's like, get a job, and do this for, and stuff. And it's like, I feel so committed, to figuring out a way to make it happen. And I have all these great ideas, I tell myself, but it's like, I got a procrastination problem or an execution issue. And, I've said it to some people and I'm like, the only way so it was, one of those things like, we're going to have this podcast.
Yeah,
Bring
no,
people, do that, start, everything's video. And I'm like, I would, I was just, I just got to execute, you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it's hard. I mean, so when I was diagnosed, I was new. I was in Connecticut, but I was new. I hadn't even lived there 2 years yet. So, I didn't really and I came to Connecticut knowing I wanted to start a family. So a lot of the people I had met were single moms. So that, when I got sick, I didn't have a lot of friends in the area. And, my mom was about 2 hours away at the time. But my closest friends were, states away. Like they lived in,
Oh, wow.
The Carolinas and, where my other family members were far away. So, yeah. And then I didn't tell anybody at work. Like I told, my immediate supervisor and the person I worked with and, the director of our office. But I mean, we had, 15, 20 other people in my office. I didn't tell them. And, I didn't even tell them till years later. And,
oh, wow.
Because it was, and a lot of it for me, I don't know how you felt, but, I think people were very well meaning, but again, I didn't know them very well. And, and every day when people are saying, how are you? I didn't know, I just didn't know on a daily basis how I was. And I just felt it too exhausting to even answer that question. And again, I think, I certainly didn't tell any of them that I was trying to have kids. So, I just felt like my whole life was in an upheaval. And so it really wasn't, it was probably around, a few years after my diagnosis when I started to get into the advocacy space and talk about it more and, had done some things with the MRF or other groups.
Doesn't it just make you feel good though when you're like in that space and like people are like interested in hearing about it and you're like, oh, cool. Like, so it's like, all right, well, rather than spend my time telling a bunch of people that I'm not getting a reaction out of, why don't I go spend my time and energy to the people that are, getting a reaction or do, you know what I mean? Like,
well,
I'm fulfilling.
Funny thing was because, had done some, blogs or whatever like that. And it was fine. And I thought, well, I actually, people could find this. So I thought I should probably tell my coworkers. So, then I spent, several months, particularly people I had worked with a long time, kind of telling them what I had gone through. I mean, they vaguely remember and I had surgery on my leg, but I really covered it up.
So you just kind of played it like you had I just had this little thing I had to go take care of. It's no good. Is that kind of like, it's no problem.
Because what I did, was kind of off cycle with the rest of the office anyway. So, I was kind of doing
it wasn't like a thing you really had to go disclose or nothing.
I didn't have to spend time with them. So then I told them my story and they were like, holy shit. And, they're like, we had no idea. And I said, I know.
Yeah.
But I completely, because then, once you do start telling, I mean, I think it's helpful in a lot of ways. I mean, not only does it help people who are going through it, but I think, it gives you the chance to kind of look back and see the growth you've had. I mean, from diagnosis to what you've been through to, how you managed it. And
it's therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's been very therapeutic, I mean, it's not like I grew up going, in therapy. I mean, I could probably totally used it, but this is like, the whole executing, and making it happen. And one of the main things was when, for me, when I got diagnosed, I didn't go to like Google, but I just go to your search browser, and you enter your diagnosis. And I had a rare diagnosis and it said, like malignant metastatic melanoma and stuff. And my doctor was telling me not to, it was like the weekend was about to happen. And my appointment, I called, he gave me the number and my appointment was for like a Tuesday morning. It was like Friday afternoon. So he said, just a couple of things because this is rare and stuff. And so, don't tell your family and don't, but also because you don't want to search it and look it up because, it's rare. It's he gave me the warning and stuff. And so, I mean, I felt compelled to tell my family. I tell everybody this. I was like, I couldn't, think of not doing it. And so I did that. And then, you know, I probably glanced at it like once and saw like really how grim it was. But I remember thinking, I'm like, the reason I stopped looking through and trying to search up stuff, because it was the same stuff and it was old and everything. And plus, you know, there was, you know, if you'd go to the video platforms and anybody that was doing any of that, like there wasn't anybody specific, you know, I think there was like a couple of things going on. You know, I just kind of overlapped where the Out of the Shadows video like came out, you know. I mean, I don't even know if it was popular enough in the feed to where I could see it, because, you know, I mean, so you know, I was just like, there's still not. And so I wanted to be able to be like, okay, to go look at something and have it be like updated and, you know, modern, you know, and they're literally talking specifically about this. And it's not like just so much clinical, like, you know, God bless all my doctors and I love all of y'all, but, you know, this is like patient specific, you know, it's from patient to patient. It's, you know, it's just kind of relaxed in a sense. And so it's but you know, something that somebody can go through and they can pull clips on, you know, and be able to be like, oh, survivor, you know, it's rare, you know, this and that. I mean, like there's none of that stuff. And I mean, I would have just so loved to been able to see some of that when I was like really going down. And so, I mean, I wasn't really documenting anything. I was off my phone a lot, no social media, and you know, I would tell like, you know, my parents and my family and everybody, they started a separate Facebook page, you know, which was this Warriors for Chris page, and they would give updates on it and stuff. And I was just like, man, I don't got the energy, because the energy I do have, I want to always be like, you know,
fighting. Great.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's all good and stuff. And so for the most part, you know how it is when like you're walking around and stuff, and it's like, you know, I got cancer, but nobody would know unless I tell them, because, you know, it's like, that's how, you know, all the melanoma, you know, it's just from the inside. Yep. And so it's like, you know, but it was like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, oh, you know, just walking around with some cancer.
Right. I know.
How you doing? I don't know what else to tell you. Yep, still fighting. Right. Where is it? Everywhere. I don't know. Is it bad? Yeah, it's pretty bad. Are you doing? I'm doing all right.
I know. Well, what you were saying earlier, you know, like not like being by yourself and not knowing what to say to people. It's funny. I like when I got sick, and you know, people would say, you know, well, have you gone out? Have you done anything? And I was like, I don't have small talk. I said, what am I going to say to people? I was trying to have a kid, and now I've got cancer. I'm like, I've got nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's you just, yeah, you kind of ignore it and pretend like it doesn't exist, and you're like, what cancer? Right.
You know, because I mean, people would be like, oh, okay, that's a lot. I'm going the other way.
I mean, I would go to like my niece's cheer competitions. I went snowboarding during my treatment. Like, I was able to do anything that I would have like ever been able to do prior to that, you know, except for, you know, my cardio was not as like what it was, but up until I got the colitis, you know what I'm saying? And then that was like 3 months of like roller coaster hell. So, but, and then after that, it was, you know, hey, slow everything down. But, you know, up until that point, you know, it was like, immunotherapy, no problem. Chemo, no problem. You know, radiation, no problem. Surgery, no problem. You know, colitis, boom. You know, it's like, it's like you go through like Rocky 1 and 2, and then all of a sudden you get to like Rocky 3, and you got Clubber Lang up in there, and boom. You know, that's colitis, Clubber Lang. That was Rocky 3, right? Yeah. Oh man. And so it's like, and then it's like all of a sudden, you know, you're like, oh wait a minute, like I know I was badass, you know, I'm Rocky, you know, I gotta make my comeback. You know. So it's time to get back at it. It's, oh shit, you know.
Yeah, no, it does. It levels you.
So I wanted to ask you, I met you in Washington through all our advocacy days and everything, but how did you get involved with MAC? And was that through the people you met through the MRF?
Honestly, 2 days before this last MRF meeting, I think Patrick, who had, you know, posted something that they just had in DC for all the meetings, and I was already signed up to go to MRF and then the day program with the MRA. And he mentioned MAC, and I was like, oh, what's MAC? And then, so I Googled it, and I was like,
maybe I missed that post.
And I was like, oh, I hadn't seen this one before. And, you know, they said you could sign up for, $25 or whatever it was and come to that meeting that morning. And I was like, okay. So that's actually, I literally just found them in March. I hadn't heard of them before.
Well, so like Patrick, he's in my Mucosal Melanoma Warriors Facebook support group, and he was able to meet the admin somehow, and it was just because we're all connected and stuff, and he got permission to get in. Anyways, I met him because he posted a survey, he's like, that I got paid for, something and stuff. And so anyways, I became friends with him, and then started meeting him I met him at the MRF and then the MRA thing. And then, he's just telling me, but like, he's like, yeah, I make a living about, doing what, he wants to do and everything. And, he's the Black Ribbon Army. That's his 501c, right. And everything. And then he's got, stuff. So yeah, I was trying to figure out how to, should I get a 501c3 or should, LLC, how should, what, what I mean? Like, and essentially, so one thing at a time. So I got my LLC. So I got Mucosal Melanoma Survivor LLC, and I already established the webpage. So the emails match up and everything. So, but I was like, eventually if I could get into a point where I could, be able to travel around and go speak and become like, a paid, person, to do that kind of stuff or for what, what I mean? And that would that'd be my business or, whatnot. But I literally wrote down like about 25 different events that go on throughout the year that are either ASCO or AACR or ESMO or the MRF or the MRA or the advocacy days. And, before advocacy days, they had the rare patient week, thing that's up there, and just all this other stuff. And I was like, man, I could spend like more than half the year, like traveling around and talking and doing all this kind of, that would be just great. Literally in the last, since December, I've been to 2 places that I've never been before, all because of, having to, talk and tell my, my melanoma story, and I went to New York in December for that event. And it was a panel on that, at Columbia University. And then, here at the MRF for advocacy days, and I was supposed to go snowboarding. that's I was going to go snowboarding, and then I was like, wait a minute, this only happens like once a year. I should really go to this. This is what I'm trying to do. Like what and stuff. My mom like called me up and convinced. She was like, yeah, like because I had to go in April to do my scan follow-ups and everything. It's like she's like, hooked me up with the room at the Winter Park. Then I was like, all right, I was like, good idea, and stuff. And so, like, I only went snowboarding once this year, and it was that when I went in April for my scans. But it was so worth it going to Washington, and like, I did it such last minute. It cost me a boat, and I was just like, but I was like, I don't care. It's like, I grew like really good credit over the years, and so it was finally time to use it, and I have been using it for, I'm kind of running out of it. So I need to figure out some list.
I'm like you.
To get some money. Dude, I did a survey the other day, yesterday. Yeah, maybe yesterday. I come out. But I got $60 for it for 30 minutes.
Nice.
Felt pretty good about it.
Yeah. No, it's always good to do those things. I agree with you.
Little stuff. At least I'm. Yeah.
Who's in his 60s, and he hasn't. He's like, oh, I'm not sure if I'd want to retire yet. I think I still have stuff to do. And he's like, what about you? And I said, I can't retire yet. I said, but if I won the lottery and could pay my health insurance, I said I'd leave tomorrow to do this kind of stuff, because I agree. It's it's the space I would want to be in too.
Yeah, I just like the whole purpose for wanting to be, what I'm saying? Like, it's like I always was trying to figure out, what I always wanted to do. As you're growing older and everything, and you're going through all your school years and stuff, and you're getting, they're like, you got to go to college. And it was like, I was always kind of hesitant. So I went to community college first, and, did my 3-year, associate's degree, and then, and then went to, my university. And it was like, I did a year here, and then, went and transferred over, there, and I got it's like I just got a degree to get a degree, and I didn't know then, so it was like, let's go do something until I figure it out. And, I try this and I try that. And I, worked the country club world, worked the recruiting world, worked the oil and gas world, and, all the other things from, it was just like, man, I don't know. I mean, I'm still not like, that's what I want to do or whatever. And it was, I got into home building, because it was suggested and it made sense. Because when I started doing it, like it was a good opportunity. It was steady, and the income growth. Over the time that I did it, I mean, I was able to grow my experience plus like my with the amount of money I would make.
Right.
And so, but it was just, you're not like physically out there doing the labor, but yeah, you're on your feet, you're moving around, you're juggling a lot of stuff. And it was just, it can be a lot, you know what I'm saying? And like, you got to be able to just be, all over there. And if like your head, when my head was totally in it, I was just like, boom, rock star, I know how,
Right.
everything clicks and all that and stuff. But, everything after the post-cancer thing, it was like, during the cancer, I couldn't actually be my full self. It was always kind of like a half-ass self. And it was like never me to really kind of be half-ass. So it was like, why am I, it's like pick one or the other. And so it's like, since there's, like I said, there's no blueprint, you got to figure, how many different ways, can you be effective, and different audiences. And it's like I had when I was in the recruiting business, this guy that trained me, and hopefully this guy is watching this, but the guy trained me, he said something to me, and it always stuck with me. And is a girl, Johnny B, and this dude said, because you're trying to find somebody, and this is like in 2012 internet, and like they were like, they didn't like let us use like Facebook in the office. So like we could go all over LinkedIn if you want. That was our thing, and like anywhere on the internet, but like there was like no other social media but LinkedIn for us to like utilize. They didn't want us on Facebook and stuff, and so I understood.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I don't know like whether your TikTok came about, but it wasn't like it is now. And then like Instagram wasn't around. It was around, but it was still kind of new. And then so, but the way you found people is through all your LinkedIn stuff and all your internet, so all these different ways you're able to track people down. But he's like, just imagine that somebody owes you money. How'd you find him? It's like or something. It was like, or whatever, because like literally it always, it's like, well, that's why I'm here, right? Like, like try to, just think outside of the box, and so like you apply that to everything. It's like, okay, where have I been looking? That's not being effective, now you can figure something, but all these different mediums and stuff. And so I'm thinking, the more of a presence, the more just kind of talk about, hey, I'm, mucosal melanoma survivor, actually anorectal mucosal melanoma survivor. I thought I had a hemorrhoid, for a few months before, I had a lymph node growing in my groin. And so by the time I actually ended up having surgery, it had been 6 months. I had a tumor on, the rim of my rectum, that was, external. And then, another tumor in my groin that was popping, that was bulging out, that was like the size of a golf ball.
Oh my God.
And so it was like, but I got the golf ball, lymph node removed first, and then the hemorrhoid, which was like, we knew then it was the tumor, but we got that removed, clear margins on bolts, and it was like off to radiation. And so it was like, what?
I know. Yeah. You're just kind of like, wait, what happened?
What? Everything was cool. I was just hustling. I was working hard, and I was just moving along. I was like, I'm getting, I had, my insurance was always awesome. That's one of the things I loved. And then ever since then, it's just another thing. It was like how important like solid insurance is, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, and and that's aside from just like talking about the melanoma advocacy, like I'm a huge supporter of access to care, and and I tell people all the time, I'm like, if we could just get to the point where everybody was able to get preventative screenings, like go to the dermatologist once a year, go to your primary care once a year, go to the dentist, like even just once a year for everything. I feel like so much would be
pretty much.
dollars down the road in healthcare costs, but no, like people don't have access to care, and wait until they feel really sick before they go to the doctor, and then it's so much more.
Well, like right now there's like what age limits on like the preventative care, like at this age this is when you start doing these things regularly, and
Right.
so if that's the age you start doing them regularly, then what's the age you start doing them irregularly? So like that would be like even younger and older. So like so I mean my first colonoscopy was like, I was still 36, and I mean, I think I ended up having two. I got to actually do another one here, that like this year,
Right. Well, now
my clinical trial, for my clinical trial, my doctor, is like, hey, you got to do another one. I'm trying to do it here when I scan next so I can kind of loop them together. But
right.
but other than that, like the standard to even get like your prostate exam, like I think I got my prostate checked once, like in my, before one, the days of getting once or twice before the days of getting diagnosed with cancer in my early 30s. So I'm not sure how common like doctors actually do that. My doctor, like, he's always, I've actually been seeing him since I was 18, you know what I mean? After I came out of pediatric. So he's been my primary since. So I trust the guy and cool as a fan. And so, but now, I mean, everything's still through the clinical trial doctors, and so they're all my primary care, I guess, would be through them in terms of all my regular checkups. But yeah, I mean, like I don't think a lot of it starts in your 30s or anything. It's usually 40 plus, 50 plus for most preventative checkups or something, or what's that?
And that's, no, it's true. I mean, colonoscopy just got bumped back to 45, but I mean, I didn't have mine till I was supposed to have it at 50.
45?
Yeah, it just got back to that. It was 50.
Oh, you're kidding me. I had no, I thought it was like, like 40 at the, or something, or earlier, because
had a family history of something, and it wasn't, and then.
So here's my proposal on why they should make it, people do them like earlier in their 30s, is because, growing up, I mean, the majority of, well, not the world, but, around these parts or whatever, but yeah, processed food and fast food, you know what I mean? And like so much of that, it gets pumped into your body, and there's just a kind of a correlation. So, it's just an extra test they do at an earlier age. Like, is it damaging to them? Is it going to like, reduce their life to get that checked or that test? No.
Right.
Like
anything, it could save it. Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm real vigilant about like what I eat and drink, and like I stopped drinking flavored coffee creamer. It's just, I just put half and half in it and stuff or whatever. But the one I was drinking is banned in like all these countries. And I was like, I was drinking that for so long. Like, oh my God, so embarrassed. It's like going out in the sun, like without wearing sunscreen. It's like, I know it's bad, but I did it anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, so I used to use cream, and then I was like Splenda, and then 15 years ago or whatever was when all the studies started coming out about how the saccharin and all of that stuff was bad for you. So, I weaned myself off. So like now I'm a black coffee drinker, and, just so probably for a decade almost, but it's hard to do, but
are you more like, are you definitely more health conscious when it comes to like, okay, like, cancer disease, da 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 da.
I mean, melanoma. Like I know, people that don't eat, sugar, don't drink at all,
Because that's the only thing I can think of that really attributed, to what my cancer was. Because I mean, physically, I was always in good health, and like I'd never, other than just injuries and stuff, but.
Sugar is not actually a factor. Like there are certain types of cancer where sugar, increase your risk. That's not true for melanoma.
Well,
but I definitely, just for lots of, it's funny because I because my mom had basal cells, and then I had melanoma, and I think, my father, after I was diagnosed, had like a stage 1 melanoma taken off his back, and he never used sunscreen growing up, but so I did genetic testing, and just went through like all the questionnaires and stuff, and they make you fill out all of the history for all of your
Yeah.
and she came back and she said, I don't really think you have any genetic. My melanoma was certainly caused by the sun. I grew up on the beach, but she's like, yeah, I don't think genetics are involved with melanoma. She said, but I have a history of heart disease on both sides of my family, so she's like, you really that's your bigger trigger, and so I definitely